So here I have a copy of the book Spook by Mary Roach, and the official title is Spook, Science Tackles the Afterlife. Once again by Mary Roach, R-O-A-C-H. And in this book she has a section here talking about spiritualism. Let's have a little bit of a read. Spiritualism, in a nutshell, is a religious movement devoted to communicating via mediums with those who have died and to proving to others via seances and other mediumistic demonstrations that it is possible to do so. First of all, I'm not exactly sure the origin of this definition. I mean, she does say in some of the previous pages that this comes to us from the Cambridge Library, I believe. Yeah, the library at Cambridge University that she said a couple pages before, but as far as I understand, spiritualism is just more of spiritual but not religious. I mean, we're talking about the way that we use the word in the everyday sort of colloquial, just everyday conversations. I mean, there's a real divide between spirituality and religion that goes on. Religion, of course, is when spirituality begins to affect culture, and then you have people beginning to pray 5 times a day, or they maybe go to church on Sundays, only eat fish on Fridays. Once people began doing this, in a new cultural way, that is what becomes religion. And somebody else also explained once that the difference between spirituality and religion can also be spirituality is the belief, and religion is the tenets, the dogmas, the rules, all of those things. I mean, I think in the social sciences and just in the social anything, no matter what, whether it's sociology or social history, you can view it in a variety of ways. But I don't really accept this definition here that spiritualism in a nutshell is a religious movement devoted to communicating via mediums. That's the first time I've ever heard it, and that was kind of the motivation for the upload. Death is viewed not as an end to life, but merely a different phase, a changing of address and scenery. That's a very big thing, though. Why are so many people afraid of death, who claim to believe in an afterlife? And those are one of the things that we should really recognize. I mean, some people view that as a good thing, and some people view that as a bad thing. Like Sam Harris and Christopher Hitchens were horribly opposed to the concept of believing in an afterlife. I mean, Christopher Hitchens more came at it from the perspective of that people don't genuinely believe this. If they did, then they wouldn't live their lives the way they do. They was like, if you were to give someone power in this life versus the afterlife, they would choose this life because they know this is the one we actually have and stuff like that. Sam Harris comes at it from a different perspective when he says things like, well, belief in paradise is destructive because it actually, I mean, for people who do genuinely believe it, they want to do destructive things in this life to get to paradise. And, I don't remember the name of that guy who was talking about how in Urdu, the word for death is actually means transition or something like that. I might not have gotten that one exactly, but, so don't quote me on that, but it's just, some people view that believing in the afterlife is actually destructive. On the other hand, there's the more Jordan Peterson school of thought where it's a belief in an afterlife actually brings optimism to society. A belief in an afterlife actually improves the overall well-being of a society. So, Peterson is all about people need the religious ideal because it gives you something to strive for. So, I mean, what I would say, though, is that maybe in many parts of the Western world, people have gotten away, though, from believing that death is a different phase and changing of address and scenery. A lot of people have gotten away from that, and I'd say we've become much more skeptical. But what I'm really noticing about the 21st century is people are also starting to recognize that spirituality is developing in a different way, and it's kind of developing in sort of a newer and more, almost more productive, kind of more peaceful way. We're talking about spirituality, religion. I mean, whether it's, people like Reza Aslan who are saying that physics and the sciences are becoming the new language by which we understand the universe, and which is his definition of a religion. We're not going to be using the traditional Abrahamic faiths as that of our religion. We're going to be using things like science to become our, sort of religious language. Because what Reza Aslan sort of says, and you don't have to agree with everything that he says, because he has some bold statements, but he just sort of comes at it from the example of religion is sort of the language that you use to understand everything from that perspective. Death is viewed not as the end of life, but merely a different phase, a change of address and scenery. Heaven, or Summerland, as the spiritualists used to call it, was no longer an abstract, but a place you could put a call into. Spiritualism was founded in 1848 by the elder sister of two bored preteens, Margaret and Kate Fox. I hope this is genuine. This doesn't sound like it really doesn't sound like anything that's going to be real. It almost sounds like someone's just having a laugh at you. Who took to soliciting mysterious spirit rappings at their farmhouse in Hydesville, New York. The noises stirred the imaginations of local townsfolk and the entrepreneurial spirit of their sister. Now, they've gone to something very different here. When you have this, their definition of spiritualism is kind of unique. I mean, it's the first time I've ever heard it used in this exact way, but they've said something very, very large. There's an enormous difference between someone who says that they believe in something versus someone who says that they can control something. Now, these things aren't the same at all. A doctor even told me once where it's it is totally normal to pray, to talk to someone who isn't there. I mean, it doesn't even have to be talking to God. I mean, talking to your dead ancestors. You can talk to anybody you want. You can talk to yourself. Those things are 100% normal. It's when you start hearing voices talking back to you, that's when you should actually recognize that maybe there is some sort of medical health issue going on. And I mean, I say that in with the most respect possible. So one of the things that we can kind of view with this particular aspect of life is just that these people aren't just saying that they believe in something. They aren't just saying that they think that something exists, that they, have this belief in a higher power. These two sisters were saying that they could control it and manipulate it, and they can understand it, and they have an ability to not only connect to spirits, because once you sort of say that you have an ability that can connect to spirits, you're saying that you can violate the fundamental laws of the universe, existence, the cosmos, whatever you'd like to call it. And that's sort of what the word magic is really all about. It's more just like somebody has an ability to violate all the laws of everything just because, in a manner of speaking. The noises stirred the imaginations of local townsfolk and the entrepreneurial spirit of their sister, who was soon inviting strangers to the house to observe the proceedings for a modest fee. Money involved, of course. Within months, the three sisters were on a nationwide tour of spiritualism and was off and running. And spiritualism was off and running. It spread steadily and traveled overseas, peaking in the aftermath of World War I, which left millions of Americans and European families grieving for lost sons and sadly vulnerable to the promise of contacting them in the afterlife. Now, this is something that I think Jordan Peterson was talking about with the concept of why people believing in why he believes believing in an afterlife is a good thing, because it's it gives people just some sort of sense of hope and optimism that their loved ones are at peace in sort of a physical, at peace in sort of a existential way, more so than physical, to be very careful with the words. I mean, it puts people at ease in sort of way, and Bill O'Reilly once sort of said, it makes you feel good. I mean, Peterson argues, though, that, that's just sort of good for the overall well-being of a society, but he isn't always clear on the way when he uses his words. Though spiritualism's ranks have dwindled since it retains a presence in the United States and more prominently in England. In 1889, 1989, possibly to its great embarrassment, Cambridge University acquired the archives of the Society of Psychical Research. Wow, interesting. And actually, there's a little note here at the bottom. It says that the SPR, Society of Psychical Research, was founded in 1882, so that's over, well, it was over 100 years old when it was acquired by Cambridge University. Once again, though, I mean, there's a case to be made about why spirituality is beneficial to society and how it could be harmful. I mean, I think it's much more of an existential issue more than anything else, where it just kind of comes down to, does this exist, yes, or does it not exist, no. That this exists, this doesn't exist. I think that would really answer a lot of questions. But, and I was discussing that with somebody a couple of months ago, and what they told me was, no one who is a believer is going to approach it the way you just said, where it's like, because for most people, it's not about, a yes or no thing, it's just about having faith in it. And there's a fair case to be made for that, even though I am on the spiritual side, and I do definitely look at it as an existential way. And, I mean, it's not really only non-believers who want to know the answers yes or no most definitively. I mean, like, you can look at it from the Deepak Chopra school of thought, you can look at it from Amit Goswami, you can look at it from a variety of spiritualities in the monastic tradition that are all about getting a more hard-lined existential answer about yes or no, like, yes, this thing is real, or no, this thing is not real. But what I would say, though, is it's very fascinating that Cambridge would take such a large interest in the Society for Psychical Research. The real reason I was just talking about getting answers is because there's an enormous difference with just having faith in something. Like, I mean, you can have faith in the intelligent creator of Abrahamic monotheism. That is completely different than saying that you as a person can manipulate physical actions without any use of anything other than your own mind, what we know as psychic powers. I come from the James Randi school of thought, where it's just like, not once have psychic powers ever been demonstrated under controlled conditions. It's like, once they sort of place controls in a way that could prevent people from using their sort of physical abilities, then the psychic powers sort of fall flat, and they just don't hold up. No one has been able to demonstrate psychic powers under controlled conditions, so we always have to be aware of that. And it's like, I mean, I would say, though, that skepticism isn't always the most exciting, but even as a kid, like, this is one of the things that I said flat out, real life is boring. Real life is, like, kind of dull and lame, and it's just sort of, that's why some people just sort of develop these fascinations with things like mediums and what they refer to here as spiritualism, or just about ghosts. And, like, it's more interesting to hear that, to think that the noises in the middle of the night are ghosts as opposed to just the wind. I mean, I can really recognize about why people would find this entertaining, and it might even just sort of they might even be happier thinking about that, or just thinking that they can communicate with a ghost or something like that, or especially they would have an overall improvement in their mood and temperament if they believe that there is this person that can talk to their dead ancestor and share messages. I mean, who wouldn't really want to talk to their dead ancestors? And it's like, perhaps there is an overall improvement in things like happiness, but the thing is, though, you can view spirituality is about happiness, or you can view it about existential, existence. I mean, you could just view it as existence. I mean, like, one person left a comment once on, it was actually one of the debates between Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris, and he just said, I don't care about the consequences, I just want to know the truth. And it's sort of like, yes, I mean, as human beings, we do have this enormous passion for the truth. And when I was listening to, Stefan Molyneux once, they were talking about Darwin, Copernicus, and Freud, about how they really kind of removed a lot of the illusions that people sort of used, or they provided alternatives based on natural science or the functions of the human brain. Not everything Freud did was scientific, but they talked about how those things definitely provided more natural explanations for things, but it also kind of diminished the overall sort of, kind of the overall, I don't know, what you'd call it, optimism, happiness of society. I can't really think of a better way to describe it. And there might be a certain case for that. I definitely think people would probably be happier believing that, there is someone there who can talk to their dead relatives. But if it's not actually true, then is it really worth believing in? If it's not actually factual, is it worth believing in? Like, does this person really have the ability to talk to your dead relatives? Well, most likely not. Almost certainly not. We always want to leave that 0.1% of probability. But what we can say is no one has demonstrated that ability under controlled conditions. So we always have to be aware of these things. Overall, though, this book Spook by Mary Roach, and she's also the author of Stiff, this book Spook is kind of interesting. I don't exactly like the tone that is used in something like this. It's like, has all the reviews written on it about how it's very humorous and it's very witty and clever. I guess so. I think it's almost just kind of like a little bit insensitive, but if anyone would like to read it, it's called Spook by Mary Roach. The thing that I would just sort of recommend, though, is just that there is an enormous difference between believing in something and then proposing that someone has the ability to violate the fundamental laws of the universe and the cosmos and all of existence and everything using only their mind power. Those things are drastically different. It's like things like prayer, okay, meditation, all right. Even someone who just sort of has like a good luck ritual or something like that. Granted, prayer and good luck superstitions are two drastically different things. We could do a whole upload about why those two are different, but at the same time, it's more about those are just things that people believe in, and we all believe in something. Everyone has a belief system, right? Anyone, and maybe not people in brain-dead comas, but almost everyone has a functioning belief system. So we can recognize that as human beings, we almost all share that commonality. And the other thing to say about that is, a belief system doesn't mean that you can violate the fundamental laws of existence using only mind power. That's a little bit more far out. And furthermore, that is something that is not easy to demonstrate under controlled conditions and has not been done before. That's all for now. Until next time.